You are watching the Deadfoot Diver Podcast with Kurt, the Deadfoot Diver.
Welcome to the Deadfoot Diver Podcast, where we talk about everything diving, tech diving, and especially the advantages of diving with disabilities. Today, I'm very pleased to have with me on the show Britain's youngest ever certified cave diver, Robert Thomas. How's it going, Robert?
Good. Yes, my friend. Thank you for having me here. It's always nice to be reached out for this kind of thing, and looking forward to see what we can have some good chats about and open up some conversation and see where it goes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. It's what time there? It's 7 o'clock at night
It's
there,
7
right?
in the evening, so it's a bit of a time difference for you. Good.
Yeah, it's 6 a.m. here.
Hence the coffee cup. Yeah, excellent. I'll be on the same thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, how did you first get involved in scuba diving?
Well, that's a question from quite a while ago now. I mean, my family dive. I was in a very fortunate position that, like, even grandparents were fairly adventurous. They were cavers. Father got into diving at the age of 14, and then kind of let me have a go when I was very young as well. So off the coast of Cornwall, I had a sort of family holidays and stuff down there, and I was only 6 when I started diving on a little 3-litre cylinder with an ABLJ backplate. So I was basically on a dog leash for the first few years of diving. It was kind of an advanced bubble maker, we could call it. And then from there, family in Malta and Gozo, and learned to dive at 10, and then it's just been a continued progression from there, really. But yeah, it's been a journey so far, and it's taken me all the way to Indonesia for the last 12 months of the year. So it's going well.
Wow, that's amazing. So you actually started diving at 3 years old.
6 years old. Yeah, so that was just about competent enough to start in the underwater world, and then it's been a ever progressive journey from there, really. But it's exciting stuff.
Wow, that's amazing. So your dad's an instructor as well,
He is,
right?
yes, he is indeed. He had a long-standing history of rebreathers and cave diving from long ago, and then he took a bit of a break from commercial diving, and then came back into it around 2016 and started teaching again full time, and he's not really looked back from there. So I've always had roads into the dive industry, which was nice, from contacts, from support of companies and other such agencies. It's always been very accessible to me, which is a luxury for sure, because I appreciate it's not always the most accessible thing in the world to get into, but once you're into it, it's a really, really rewarding sport.
It is a very expensive sport, that's for sure.
Yes. It's not.
Especially when you get into doing the technical stuff and with the rebreather stuff, which I'm starting to find out more how much the cost
For
is.
sure. It's not a money-saving sport. It's fairly high investment into it to actually get into it in the first place. But I've always kind of looked at it and been taught at it as, if you buy good equipment, it's going to last you a long, long time. So I've still got equipment I bought when I was in my early teenage years that I'm still teaching on now. It works perfectly with the right servicing and everything else. And it's like asset buying, really. It's just, especially with the rebreather side of thing, you buy an asset which you then love and use and work with, and it just keeps working and working and working. So it's the initial cost that is potentially problematic, but there's ways and means around that if you want to pursue it, for sure.
Yeah, I know a couple of my friends are into rebreathers, and they've been telling me the cost of it. But then I had one of my other friends say, I said to him, I said, okay, I want to do this dive eventually on open circuit. So he gave me, I said, what am I going to need for gases and stuff if I'm going to train that way? And he's like, well, you'd have to do Trimix for first. So then he starts calculating out the price of the gas, and it's like, oh my God.
For sure. I mean, the thing with open circuit, especially Trimix open circuit, is you're basically just hemorrhaging money. You breathe it in and it's just off into the atmosphere. There's no recuperation with that. And the rebreathers, you're recycling that same gas. I mean, you really don't have to do that many sub 60 meter dives to have nearly sort of worked out the cost of a rebreather in the first place. And you then got that said asset,
Yeah.
which is kind of part of the joys of it, really. You do have to like it. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, definitely if you're getting into a lot of deeper stuff, and you're doing it on a regular basis, I can definitely see the point of it for sure. Cost wise. Um, what scares me about it is all the maintenance and the planning ahead of time to do it, because I have ADHD. I'm afraid it would kill me eventually.
Yeah, I mean, from that point of view, it just gets easier the more you do. Again, that frequency is kind of the baseline of that. If it's something you're only going to do once a year, once every 5 years, it's absolutely not. But if it's something that if it's your sort of passion, if it's your hobby that you take forward, and then as your own journey in the sport grows, you get more proficient at that. I mean, there's only so many things that can go wrong at the end of the day, and that list is not short. But once you've sort of got your head around those things, it's just a case of growing and making it as efficient as possible.
Exactly. So, what got you into doing? You're Britain's youngest ever cave diver, correct? Certified.
Yes, I think I'm a few youngest ever in the diving world, to be fair. And again, that stems from the early innings. But like I said, grandparents, they caved in Somerset. They were found fundamental in sort of setting up some of the caving clubs in the UK. And then that sport was happening for me, or that activity was happening for me. I was diving at the same time, and then once I sort of got old enough and my peers slash family approved of the situation, those two sort of merged together, and it just became this most amazing journey of underwater activities. Caving and diving, I love both of them. Put them together, and it's just absolutely mind bending. It's taken me all over the world, and it's kind of my drive to continue doing what I like doing is exploring these places, because it's just something that most people will never see and don't have even the opportunity to. But it's there. It's for sure there, and it is available to anyone that wants it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, now when I was reading something the other day, I actually read that your dad actually had a procedure that when you got certified in one certification, before you can move on to another cert, you had to do at least 50 dives.
Yeah, that was standard, definitely. And I mean, unfortunately slash fortunately, depending on how we're looking at it, that's not how general dive. What's the word? It's not how the general dive organisations run. But I think that was crucially beneficial to me, especially doing it at a young age. I was always brought up on the attitude of like, just enjoy the diving you're doing at the level you're doing it. A large percentage of the world will never get below 18 meters or an open water ticket, and they're more than mind blown to continue diving that on holiday when they do it. They love it. So that 50 dives really didn't seem like very much at the time, because it was just my sort of development into it. But I would always recommend, the more diving you can do, the more experience you can get at the level that you're sort of qualified to, the better, because that's just going to prolong your diving career in the industry, or as fun divers as itself. I see a lot of people. I mean, I'm in a very high frequency area at the moment in Gili Trawangan in Indonesia, so it's a very different market to what I grew up diving and grew up teaching. But I would suggest those people are never going to do 50 dives between each course. Most of them don't have 50 dives to their name in the first place, but that's the market. So you've got to kind of, it goes in both ways. If you had to do that frequency between courses, you probably wouldn't sell the courses. But I would argue that there's not a better diver that's done a decent amount of diving at the level they're doing it, compared to someone that's just jumping from course to course, for sure. So I fully stand by my father's tactics on that one. He also sort of shoehorned me off to other instructors once he'd sort of qualified me. Before he even certified stuff, we'd go and do trips abroad and dive with other people that he looked up to, his peers, his colleagues, and he'd like, well, have I missed anything? Just ask me to go diving with them without him. Just like, have I missed anything? Like, is this good? So it's always worth cross-referencing these things, especially when you get to slightly more technical ranges, because the reality of it is the difference between making a mistake in recreational ranges, there is no real consequence. The consequence of making a mistake underground or deep on a shipwreck or anywhere technical, it can be fatal. So we do have to take it into consideration on that front. Yeah, it was been a good training course for sure. I definitely wouldn't be where I am now without that attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be an instructor back in the 90s, and I mean, even now I've seen it since I've started diving again, how quick some people are going and jumping from like open water to advanced to boom, 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 boom,
So it's
going into dive master.
yeah,
And it's like, wait a sec, you only have like 60 or 75 dives and you're already training for dive master.
that's the market though, isn't it? That's the game that we play with these wonderful agencies that have produced the material for us, but without the volume, you don't get to play at the sharp end of the sport either. So it's a give and take situation. You just got to be sensible because some people 40 dives more than capable of doing the dive master. Some people 400 dives are still completely incapable of doing the same training. So it's variable. It's definitely catering for an average of denominators across all classes for sure, which I like. But there is always that age old question of there will be someone jumping from course to course doing the next thing because that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. I like the statistic I learned probably some years ago. I'm not sure how accurate it is now, but in the UK or in Europe at least, the average life expectancy of a diver or someone diving from starting their open water to getting to the peak of where they've got to was 6 years as a maximum. So
Really?
with that, it's like, yeah, you could jump and jump and jump to the next course. And yeah, of course, you're going to complete it. You're going to think you finished diving because you've got to the highest level you're either comfortable with or that you can financially afford, or you just get bored of it. But I personally haven't found that, and I don't foresee myself finding that because I'm always diving at the level I like to dive at. You know, be that learning as an instructor to teach or pass on my experiences through the activity, or just pushing my own limits. You know, going a bit deeper, going a bit further, while still taking into consideration the rest of what was just mentioned, really, in that experience base.
What's your deepest dive?
161 meters, which was back in July this year. So that was possibly a bit above my pay grade. To be fair, I wouldn't even class that as my dive. I've done a good handful of dives below 100 meters now, and down to sort of the 130 range is pretty comfortable. But we had a customer, as you do in a place like this, and he was a customer of someone else's that was working here before, Sam Mason. He was pretty prolific in this area. We did 5 years on this little party island, which is a bit ruthless in that sense, but lots of very good deep diving here. And Danny had done multiple sub 200 meters or at least a couple, and he wanted to go deep, and I was on the list to go deep. So the boss said no deeper than 150. So of course the final dive was a little bit above that, but yeah, it was right on the edge of what I was comfortable with. I don't regret doing it for sure. Everything went smoothly, everything was good, but I definitely don't feel any immediate need to go back there for my own personal diving. Definitely, there's stuff slightly shallower than that, but still deep that I'm interested in. But that started getting a bit spooky below 145, 150. It started changing the game a bit there, and it was a good experience, and for sure I will go back there. But when I go back there is a different question, you know. But it was good.
So, what did you find was the biggest thing that like scared you or intimidated you when you were doing that type of depth?
Obviously, the risk versus consequence scale that changes. We basically did an 80-meter dive, 100-meter dive, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160. So we'd done a lot of diving up to that point, and everything had gone smoothly, which is why we made the decision to just go a little bit further and enjoy what we do like doing. Because don't get me wrong, it was a very enjoyable experience. It was super cool being down there. But it's just the lack of experience for my own personal self of HPNS and things like that. Because below 150, you're definitely in that bracket. And admittedly, like, I don't have any experience other than those two dives sub 150. The first dive to 150 felt good. That was a much happier dive, but I didn't really appreciate what I was feeling at that depth. It was kind of a little bit like narcosis, but not narcosis at all. There was some distinct differences between body feeling, and again, like an experience base of pushing what you can do on open circuit, pushing what you can do on rebreathers helped me there, because it was like, yeah, these feelings are not uncontrollable, but they're definitely closer to that line than I would personally like, or maybe worded differently, I would like to understand that feeling better before pushing it. So building that experience range in the sort of down to 140, that's the sensible thing to do. Like 150, 160 is deep. It is deep. And then on the big dive, wasn't really my dive, because I'd realized that I'd lost my SMB. I was at about 100 meters, and the topography on the dive site basically steps off 45 meters, drops down to around 100, 110. Then it steps off again, and then again down to 160, and then it's kind of slopes down to 180, 200. I'm basically stood on a ledge at about 120 meters, and I'm just watching my partner go down, and I'm thinking, do I want to go down there? Do I want to go down there? I've worked out I've lost my SMB. I'm not particularly happy about this fact. The descent felt quite messy. It was quite clipping cylinders on the boat. We've got 5 cylinders each, so that's a busy time. If that process doesn't go smoothly, it can be quite disconcerting. So that was kind of strike one. Strike two was losing the SMB and then being distracted by that, which is why I paused for a second to work out if that's what I actually want to do. And I decided, well, what could go wrong, really, and just went for it. So yeah, it was a distinct decision, and if it did go wrong, I mean, it wouldn't be my problem to live with that, really, which is a bit of a selfish attitude, but in the grand scheme of things, what can you do? I mean, you are very much on your own down there. There was a few in the warm-up dives. We had one free-flowing regulator which was shut down, and pressure checked, and we continued, all good. But when you get back to the surface and you realize that a free flow at 130 meters for less than 5 seconds has drained half a cylinder, half an S80. I personally think the concerning thing about that depth is your bailout on open circuit, at least, is you're basically holding your breath and scootering back up. You've got such a finite amount of gas there. It's run away and do it well, otherwise you will not be getting back to where you need to be. But yeah,
yes,
it was a good experience. I enjoyed it, but more experience needed for me personally to go back to those depths, definitely. I mean, no rush either. I'm been a fairly quick in on my end.
You were doing side mount that dive?
So on a JJ, and then obviously the irrelevant bailouts for that. So 2 deco gases, 2 intermediates, and then a deep bailout. So and scootering as well. So very, very busy. Things just how much do I trust my equipment at that depth as well? I've never tested that. It's like I can see my computer screen pressing in on itself at depth, and I'm like, shit, yeah. I still see the lines where it was pressed in on that now, so it still works. It's good to go. But when you're looking at the center of your computer screen and obviously hyper focused, and it's pushing in on itself, it's like, well, if that fails, that sucks. Like, that would not be good. I don't want to think about that. Fortunately, it didn't. We shallow up, and then there was another sort of semi-concerning moment. It was 80 meters, and there's a sort of mini wave of nausea as we did a gas switch, and it's like, whether that was just afterwards, just after the gas switch, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes afterwards, they've been on gassing the slightly higher O2, and I'm like, oh, I really don't want to have to do 4 hours of deco feeling like this. That would suck. But fortunately that passed. You roll the dice with that type of thing, and you can only accept that risk yourself, and I've always been taught to do so, whether it's a 30-meter dive or a 130-meter dive. The relevance of not having something to breathe underwater is, well, lights out.
So you had a 4-hour decompression.
I think it was about a 4-hour dive in total. Yeah, so there was a good few hours of deco left to do. I could look at my computer again, but yeah, it was about a 4-hour dive, and obviously we had about a 10-minute bottom time from surface to leaving the bottom was 10 minutes. So in essence, yeah, there was about 4 hours worth of deco to do. My favorite thing about doing that type of dive is when the TTS is now matching the runtime. That amuses me greatly when you've got like 100 minutes and 100 minutes, or 150 and 100. It's good.
Wow, that's amazing. Especially that you can actually see the imprint on your
Well, that will
computer
live with
from
me,
where it
yeah,
was like,
until I choose to purchase a new rebreather, which is not in any time soon. Um, yeah, that will be there for a while. I think that won't leave.
yeah, definitely crazy. So, do you so obviously you do a lot of technical teaching. Do you also do you teach rebreather as
I
well?
do, yep, I do. That's kind of why I came to Indonesia. To be fair, I started teaching rebreathers in 2022, yeah, so quite recently, really. And building a business in the UK is great. There's customers coming through the door. There's lots of cave diving. There's lots of wreck diving. There's some rebreather diving. I mean, lots of rebreather divers. But as a brand new rebreather instructor, I'm not necessarily the person people are going to go to straight away. So I had the opportunity to come out here, which is one of the bigger, or Triang and Dive, one of the biggest certifying agencies globally. Really, it kind of gives some of the stuff in Thailand a run for its money, and it's got a massive tech center. Yeah, we've got 12 rebreathers in the room, of which 5 of them are teaching rebreathers, and there's a section of personal equipment. People come and go. So it's a really fantastic opportunity to just build some experience teaching on CCR, and that's what I've done. I'm in a position now to kind of continue on that journey down there. But yeah, rebreather teaching is stressful. Like you've got to be so sharp. You've got to be so sharp diving them as a whole. But to teach on them, you've got to take someone that's got no idea. And especially in this climate, the market is not necessarily people that have been diving that long. Like have just seen that rebreather diving is a thing, and they've got money so they can access it. But that doesn't make them good divers by any means. There is also good divers coming through the door. Don't get me wrong; it's a mixture of the two. But with that in mind, like yes, I do teach rebreathers. I really like teaching it. It's probably my favorite thing to teach, but it's been a steep learning curve putting, 15, 17 students through the ringer in the last year. It's a good time, but nevertheless, as I said, really really educational from my point of view as well. It's great.
Oh yeah. So what is the minimum amount of dives that you have to train rebreather?
Actually, incredibly low. Off the top of it, it's been a long day. I think it's like 20. It's like standard tech stuff. You can sign up to baseline recreational rebreathers with like 25 or 50 dives, somewhere in that range. It's actually very low indeed. You need an advanced open water and a fairly low number of dives, which, like we mentioned earlier, to some people that works fine. They're competent enough to do it. Other people have got a few hundred dives and they just have no comprehension of what's going on. It's really what's going on between your ears in the rebreather world. You've got to have at least a bare minimum of a slight mechanical understanding. Is very, very helpful. On the flip side of that, you get people that have done like 1,000 dives, 10,000 dives, somewhere in that bracket, and all recreational. They've been working in the tropics for years and years and years. They may even be at course director level. Our course director here, Matt, he's great, super competent guy, but not really done any diving deeper than 40 meters. And his next step for his own personal diving was to be on CCR, which took him a long way, and he's still diving that now, which is wonderful because it kind of refreshes what you know about diving. When you learn something new, you can get quite stuck in your ways, I think, and that's a habit we need to just be aware of as the diving community as a whole, because it's very, very easy to get stuck in your ways and not learn anything new. But I'm I don't know everything about it, but I have an experience base which I love to share. Part of my progression of the sport is enjoying teaching. Like every course I do, I learn something new. I'm in the middle of a advanced nitrox decompression proceedings course at the moment, and it's one-on-one, so relatively unstressful because that's something I'm quite comfortable teaching now. But still there's consequence to it, and he's actually very competent, so that teaches me how to push a little bit harder. Yeah, I can stress him out a little bit more because it's just 1-to-1 versus having a group of 3 with different abilities or a group of 3 with the same abilities. There's so many different factors with this type of diving, and diving as a whole, especially moving on to sort of adaptive stuff as well. You really do have to change the way you teach and look at diving. You know, it's a tool for a job. That's how I've always been taught for it to be. It's just a tool for a job, and that job happens to be enjoying a reef at 10 meters or an exploration dive in a cave somewhere. It's just a wide open spectrum that you can kind of make what you want out of.
Yeah, that's amazing. So with the just to touch quickly on the 20 dive rebreather bit, that's got to add a lot of stress to you as an instructor.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's like they don't even know how, at that point. And of course, you take it and you see what you can do, because why not? You know, at the end of the day, if they're not good enough, they don't pass. It's my job to keep people alive in that setting. But they don't even know which way a cylinder valve turns to go on and off. You know, I mean, I think having a baseline of advanced nitrox deco proceedings, basically like open water tech diving, kind of the fundamentals of what you need to know, is good. However, then you lose a chunk of the market. So makes it more accessible to be lower, but it's then down to the discretion of the instructor or the competence of the student as to how far they go with that. The first rebreather course I taught here, the dude did 3 days of a 7-day course and he couldn't hack it, so he dropped out. He scared himself basically, and that's, you've got to make that decision. I mean, it was sort of, he didn't want to continue, and if he did want to continue, I would have very much advised against it. But that's kind of a taint on the environment, really. Everyone could do it with the proper training and the right attitude. Whether everybody should do it is a very different question. But again, tool for a job. How far do you want to go? Is the sharp end of what diving has to offer.
So he bailed after 3 days. So what was it that happened to him that he went, okay, yeah, this is definitely not my cup of tea?
Basically, he had it was a very simple fix as well. He hadn't opened his flow stop on the ADV. So he gets down to like the first 3 dives, good. The 4th dive, he left it closed, which is trying a negative entry, as you do, kind of step it up a bit. And he never opened it, and he couldn't find the man, so then he couldn't breathe. There was no loop volume for him to breathe. You're at like 10, 15 meters, and then you just had a massive sort of tizzy at that point because he didn't manage to bail out himself. I had to pull the regulator out for him, put it in his mouth. It's like, yeah, you are fine. There was nothing actually going wrong. But after that, it was like, no, you can explain to somebody that these things are potentially hazardous to life, and then you can show them. It's a very different learning experience for the person involved.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that. Like, I mean, a lot of people, they go and they think, oh yeah, well, I want to go do that deep wreck or something like that, and don't take the time to get the extra training involved in it. And that's when accidents happen. And I mean, let's face it, I had John Chatterton on here, and he's, you know, one of the things he says, there's not a single diver fatality unless it's from a heart attack or a medical type of condition that the diver's not at fault.
100%. Like we sort of touched on, there is history has shown us there is only so many circumstances that can occur underwater. I mean, granted, each one of those circumstances may have multiple different factors involved, which makes the analysis of that quite complex. However, it's kind of, factors around analysis of diving. If you assess all of them and we learn from the mistakes that are made, it is always diver fault. It's why we have checklists, but it's also why we have simplified checklists, because people can't follow the original checklist. You know, all of this is quite simple. It's also very complex, and that's kind of where the arrogance comes in, where the thinking I can just jump in and do a 75-meter shipwreck in unknown territories to yourself, where actually you've only dived 75 meters in pristine, clear coral water in Utila somewhere. You go into the English Channel and you try and do a shipwreck with a load of cannons on the floor. Something's going to go wrong. You know, I wouldn't want to jump, having not been in the UK for a year now, I wouldn't want to jump into 100 meters in the channel. I want to build up slowly, you know, just get used to everything again. And that's been the case throughout my diving career as well. It's always been like, yeah, you've excelled at this point, let's move back to that point and then restart again. You know, it's like cave diving. I haven't been cave
Yeah.
diving for some time now. I've had an expedition in Thailand the start of the year before I came out here, and then I've got a trip to Florida in March to go diving with Dive Right. So that's going to be a bit of a awakening for me again. I'm going to have to refresh my skills before I go out there because they're just something I've not used for 12 months. It's just been a different market.
Yep. Yeah, which is completely understandable. And I mean, I think a lot of it with people when it comes to that, like I know when I started diving again this year, I was at first it was like, okay, I'm gonna do like 100-foot dives. That's it. I blah blah blah. But when I was into diving previously, I was just getting into technical diving when I stopped. So it took about, I think about after like 4 or 5 dives this year, it's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna want to do some technical stuff now. So I'm actually getting side mount trained this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think
So
for any kind of sort of prohibitive injury or disability, side mount, especially going a little bit further into it, is the way forward. That is the most versatile of all of the systems that we've got at play, for sure. The ability to just clip stuff on, take stuff off as and when you like is amazingly easy when it comes down to it. If you understand what's going on, it's just the best. Yeah, it's for sure the best.
yeah, that's the benefit I'm looking forward to it is because I have like my left leg, I have no movement below the knee or feeling below the knee. And then my right hip is also pretty pinned and plated up as well. So I'm pretty restricted on movement. And we have a lot of shore dives here and it's all rock. So I'm looking forward to it that way. I honestly, when I started diving again, I had this guy I was getting some used equipment off of who's into cave diving and stuff. He says, yeah, maybe you should look at doing side mount. Like side mount? I'm
Dirty
not
words.
doing any
Yeah,
full
that's
blown
not
cave
good.
diving. And it's funny now though, because I have there was one of the other guys that I dove with this year. He actually dived side mount, and he got certified last year. And then I had about I would say probably at least 10 or 11 instructors and advanced divers I met that are like, you need to try side mount because of your legs. And now I actually have 3 other friends, so there's going to be 4 of us that are all going to be side mount certified this year.
It's yeah. I mean, I can't recommend that enough. I mean, my own personal experience with sort of diving with disability. A friend of mine, Dan McCarthy, did. He was trying to break the world record. He had a bit of a rough time, to be fair. He crashed his motorbike and then was paralyzed from the waist down, and then he got into hand cycling, and then he got hit by a truck. So then he was done from the chest down. So he's like no core muscles, no like he's functional, like mental capacity there completely, but severely disabled. And he wants to go diving. He was diving before and he's got into it again now. It's like the first time he's felt weightless in a few years since the accident happened. I think that's a big feature of it, and that's why it's so wonderful for the participants of that. But anyway, he was diving on a twin set. He wanted to go extend his ranges a little bit, not super deep, not super long, but wanted a bit of redundancy from that. And he just was toppling over. He just toppled because his two headers, the weighting's not correct. So anyway, we spent a good few months with him sporadically, as and when we could, just setting him up with side mount. And then he went on to use that system to swim the furthest anyone with paralysis has swum underwater. So he's gone on to do 5.5 hour dives, swimming over 5 kilometers, breaking 3 world records. You know, that's the power of the equipment we're using. When I really say it's a tool for a job, it is a tool for a job. It's just whatever you want that job to be. I think we need to maybe reanalyze the job word there. It's fun as well. It's not necessarily just work, but yeah, it's a very powerful tool, diving. It's wonderful in its whole.
You got to put me in touch with this buddy of yours. I would love to interview.
100%. He'd be absolutely over the moon to talk about it. 100%. There's no drama at all.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the best things I love about doing this podcast is all the cool people I've met. and the adaptive divers that I'm starting to meet and stuff like that. And I'm actually planning on, I was supposed to go last month to get certified as an adaptive buddy. And that got pushed off because of my hand injury, but I'm going to do that this year. And I'm really looking forward to it just because the people I'm going to get to dive with. And I mean, there's a lady up here that I'm probably going to get a chance to dive with this summer, that she's a paraplegic and she's like almost full cave certified.
Yeah. There's
So,
nothing stopping
which to
anybody.
me
There's
is like,
never an excuse. There's never an excuse. It's just how much you want to put into it. That's the soul of it. There's never an excuse not to do it. You've just got to commit and find what you like and find what you don't like. And then you'll meet the most amazing people on the most amazing journey, and you'll just have the time of your life. That's the best thing about the dive community in my mind as well. It's just everybody knows somebody that everybody knows. You know, especially when you get into the environment I'm in, teaching and pushing the sport from kind of the ground up almost in some ways. I do what I can, but you just meet absolutely fascinating people, and everyone's got a completely different story. Everyone's done completely different things, but they've all come together around the same kind of hub of diving. It's just
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And by the way, we're also on your favorite podcast platforms now. We are on Amazon. We are on Spotify. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on Player FM and Podchaser. All of the descriptions are going to be down below, so make sure you check us out. Thanks. Have a great day. And remember, grab an adventure and live.
yep. So, what other things with disabled divers have you seen or worked with, or the benefits from? Like, I'm sure. What about for pain relief for some of your friends and stuff like that, especially your paraplegic?
that's it. I mean, my sole experience really is with Dan. To be honest, I haven't done too much else around that as a community. I'm very aware of it. He's quite involved. I forget the name, but it's in Grenada. There's an adaptive dive company in Grenada that he goes out and sees quite a lot. I'm sure his intel on that will be good for you as well. But yeah, the sort of reviews on getting in the water when you're confined to either crutches or a limb that doesn't work or a wheelchair or anything like that, being able to get into the water and just be completely weightless, completely free. There's no additional strains or stresses on the body that isn't just kind of natural, especially if you're in a setup that's really working for you as opposed to kind of working against you. I know a friend of mine I grew up with teaching in the UK in London. He's done multiple pool sessions with charities that do similar diving. They give this sort of DSD experience, Discover Scuba, and people love it. They absolutely love it. I don't think there's a better therapy for somebody that's either mentally struggling or physically struggling. There's nothing better than just doing something. Something being diving, something being going for a walk, climbing a mountain. You know, there's things that people can do to make their lives happier, and I think scuba diving is quite high up that list of things that is very accessible to all people, all of the time. You can go anywhere and do it. You can take it wherever you want to do it. I mean, we've got a coral propagation workshop / program running out of the centre, and there's been a lady here who's I haven't actually had the time to speak to her recently, but she's clearly got a fairly major leg disability. From first glance, it looks like there might not be any bone in there at all. It's catastrophic. So she's on crutches, goes around, goes diving, plants coral. What a wonderful thing to do. Like in its simplest form, it is just very, very rewarding to anyone that's struggling with anything. You know, like I don't claim to be the happiest person all the time, but I know for damn sure I'm happy when I'm in the water. There's nothing else going on. It's just great.
Yeah, it has. I can definitely attest to that. It has given me my life back. Started diving again. I actually, it was a year ago in Cozumel. I was on a snorkeling trip, and a lady who had very bad degenerative bone disease and couldn't even get on the boat without a walker. And they actually sat her down beside me so we ended up talking, and it was the first time she'd gone diving in like over 25 years. So pretty similar situation of me. And so the entire time I was like watching this lady while she was diving, right? I wasn't even paying attention to all the sea life.
Yeah.
And the next day I threw on a tank. And if it wasn't for her, I will be eternally grateful, because if it was for her not being on that boat, I would not have done it. I would not have probably not have thrown a tank on the next day. I wouldn't have even thought
There's
about it.
always that
You know,
catalyst that just gives you the motivation, gives you the drive to just go, to just do it, commit to it. What's the worst that can happen, really, in that environment? What is the worst that can happen? You don't like it. Oh, fine, try something else. But chances are you probably will like it. It gives people their lives back. It gives people a life in whole. I mean, the dive. I couldn't even guess at how many divers there are globally, but it's a popular thing to do. You know, there's a lot of people, which gives it a lot of variation, which means that you can do whatever you want with it, go wherever you want with it, and if you've had a life of activity and adventure, and then something happens, an accident or an unforeseen circumstance that takes that away, it's brutal. It's completely brutal. So to find something that is so inclusive, you don't meet many unpleasant divers, really. You've got people with opinions you might not agree with, but at whole, generally, people are very welcoming and quite warm. So it's yeah. I mean, there's not much more to be said other than try it. If you haven't already, just try it. You might like it.
yeah, it's done amazing for me as far as depression and stuff like that goes. I battled with that for like years after I got hurt. And it has been the absolute, it's given me my life back. There's no other way of putting it. I mean, my wife and my friends have been shocked at the difference in me between last year and this year since I've started diving again.
That is commendable in itself, isn't it? And even better,
Oh,
you're now in a position to make it even more accessible to people with the podcast, aren't you? You can share your experiences, which is reaching people that may or may not have otherwise even known about it as a thing. So I think you said, yeah, that depression thing, it kind of plays strong with a lot of people, whatever your situation, it does. But you give someone a purpose and you give them something to do, and then you find the most amazing joy in being able to then promote what you like doing to other people to help them. Like it's magic. It really is. It is. I don't want to be too cliche. I'm not going to say it's a superpower, but it's pretty fucking. Sorry, it's pretty close. You know.
yeah. It is though. It's unbelievable on, that's the one thing, like every episode that I've been recording on this, I've been hearing about people with disabilities, and that some of my famous divers have been coming on and telling me about, and it's like blowing my mind, the stuff that some of these guys are doing. Excuse me. And it's like, okay, well, I have no excuse not to do cave diving or any of that stuff now, which I did actually when I first started again. And when I was gonna get into doing tech stuff, my wife's like, okay, no rectum penetration and no cave diving, because I'm also blind in my left eye. So, and I have glaucoma in the other one as well, so that doesn't help.
That's what the
And
line's for, though.
no, I'm like, no,
That's what the guideline's for, isn't it?
yeah,
Who needs vision? Eh? It's dark anyway.
yeah,
Good to go.
yeah. But I actually have an adaptive instructor up here that is like one of the world's best adaptive diving instructors. And the guy was teaching me side mount. And now I want to actually try cave diving and cavern diving, which I would have never even thought of, especially with my disability. But with all these other guys that are doing it that are far more disabled than I am, I got no excuse why I can't go and try it. Now, how far I decide to go in cave diving, I don't know, but I'm definitely at least gonna do like cavern and cave intro and stuff like that for it to try for
And
sure.
that's the crux of it. It's just how far you want to take it. It gives the ability to push your own limits within safe working standards. You know, enough people have done silly things and made silly mistakes to allow the community to have grown to a point where literally anybody can do it, disability or not. You know, But then you do still need the same mental awareness of like where my limits lie. That's a fundamental thing in any tech diving. You've got to know your own limits. It's like, I like the term the fear of doubt. If I start doubting myself, I'm not in a position to be then controlling the environment that I'm in, and it's going to start snowballing out of control. So it's worth being cautious of these things, but that's kind of the thrill of it as well.
No, exactly. I mean, it's you gotta be careful with what you're doing and plan stuff out properly. What's when you're preparing for a cave dive or any type of major dive, like how many hours of preparation do you put into? Bring me up one of your biggest dives that you've done that you've had to do like a lot of planning for.
Yeah. No, so years of planning to get to a point where I can just take my equipment and go and do things relatively efficiently. My probably, other than the deep stuff I've done here, my biggest dive to date was probably in the Oaxaca region of Mexico in a resurgence called Huautla. I mean, Jill Heineth was fairly fundamental in that one as well. I had an invite out there after someone I knew dropped out of the expedition. And again, biggest sump I'd done. That my previous sort of penetration distance was around a kilometer, a little bit further than the kilometer. This cave is 1.6 kilometers to the far side, where there's then more dry caving. And it's broken up. It's like 1,200 meter sump in sump 2 and 400 meter sump in sump 1. So climbing over a waterfall 400 meters into a cave is probably enough to send most people's hair standing on end. And then going through a 1,200 meter long sump is, that's another level of risk in itself, but also reward for it, because I've yet to think of a place I would have been happier doing the thing I'm doing than scootering through passage wider than I can see, 65 meters deep, to go caving on the other side. It's a combination of everything. But I would absolutely not have been able to do that if I hadn't spent cave diving at that time for 6 years. So I would attribute all of my experience and planning abilities to do that. From an actual time frame of that, probably took me about half a day to pack, because I knew what I needed. I know everything. I know where it needs to go. I know its position on myself. I know its position in the suitcase. You put it in a bag, you take it across the world, and then you unpack it again and build it up. Without the experience and knowledge of how you put it all together again is not possible. The other caveat to this one is it's the best part of a day's hike to get in there. It's a good few hours down a canyon over multiple river crossings in deepest, darkest Mexico. It's a long way from home, for sure, a long way from home. And that just adds to the kind of hard work / excitement of it. But yeah, that was a milestone experience for me there. Unfortunately, that specific cave didn't seem to do very much, although that area of Mexico is very much on my list of places to go back. If anyone's listening and wants to go, it would be great. That's on the list for the next few years for sure, because it's hard won there. It's hard won. It's a long way from home, and it's pretty hazardous terrain all round. So, but hours, days, weeks, months, years is kind of the answer to the planning stage of these dives. It's a fairly continuous scope in that sense.
So do you get to dive with your dad a fair amount? Like, obviously, when you're in Indonesia.
He came out here. Here in October. He did a month's worth of diving with me. He's my dive buddy. He's my dive partner for sure. I don't have anyone I'd rather dive with than my old man. So from that point of view, yes, we dive all the time. I'm sure I think he may have been cursing me under my breath for moving to the other side of the world, but it was something I needed to do to progress what I'm doing. So yeah, there's no judgment held against me there, but I do dive with him often. Yeah, we did a 130 meter dive here together, which was super special. I've not done anything that deep with him before. I couldn't even tell you how many dives we've done together, but back home, we're kind of working together, teaching together, diving every week. So yeah, he would be the go-to advisor for my stupid ideas. He'd be the go-to dive buddy as well, where sort of ability and competence and sort of general experience lies. Because, you know, I might want to go somewhere a little bit of a further walk away, but that doesn't mean he can't come along and advise on that setting. You know, I always take his opinion into consideration when it comes to doing sort of bigger dives, definitely, because you never know. You just never know. There's never a hurting. It's not a hurtful thing to get someone else's opinion on something you think is a good idea, because they might come up with a reason why it's not.
So, one question I have to ask is, when there's usually a parent involved in teaching their child something, some things do not generally go easy or go well at all. Because, I mean, let's face it, you're going to have conflicts over certain stuff, to personality or stuff like that. And when you're doing something like technical diving and training, how does that translate when it's your dad, the one teaching you?
It's a really good question. Yeah, that's a topic for an entire podcast, I think, about the human nature and how we go about these things. But I can honestly say that we haven't really, touch wood, ever had any conflicts around the teaching and the progression of diving. Our conflicts have come in, as all fathers and sons do, as all mothers and daughters do. They all come around and everyone's going to butt heads at some point, but that's generally always been external from the diving side of things. I've always had the utmost respect for what he's done in the past and what he continues to do and how he does it. So from that point of view, it's actually been quite easy. I was never forced into diving. It was just an activity that was available to me. I think it would have been different if he said, "You are coming diving now." I think maybe that would have lost the appeal a little bit. And I think it's it's an exceptional thing, because you can't really put a price on growing diving together, especially doing that as a family. I mean, it's just been a outstanding journey, and I attribute most of my diving ability to both of my parents. Both of my parents dive. Yeah, dad obviously teaches at a higher end, but mum was there too. Yeah, she went diving. She's gone diving. Both of which have been incredibly influential regarding safety concerns and things like, obviously, I don't tell my mother everything I do before I do it. I tell her after I've done it. Yeah. Dad, on the other hand, he gets the upfront view of what's going on. Like, that's just the nature of how it's played out. But really, it's been quite straightforward teaching me to dive, because he's always done what we mentioned before. He's always sort of siphoned me off to other instructors. When I did Cavern, he taught me Cavern intro. And then we went out and visited Christina Zanata in the Bahamas, and I did some at the time, 16-year-old me, biggest dives I'd done, 500 or 600 meters into places like Owl Hole and Mermaids. Mind-bending cave diving. Wow. Mind-bending cave diving indeed. But she put me through the ringer as well. Yeah, I did more. I didn't know some of the things that she was teaching, because we have different etiquettes in the UK and in the States. So it's always been a case of, like, whatever level I'm at, it's like, yeah, go and do something with somebody else. Make sure that you're happy doing that alone, because if you're not happy doing that alone, I don't want to go with you either. So from that point of view, it's been quite straightforward.
So how all right, that brings me to another question. Does your mother dives? Does she do any technical
Not
diving?
really. No, she's done her twin set stuff. She's got a little 7-liter twin set, very much more happy down to sort of 30 meters recreationally, self-proclaimed, doesn't want to set the world on fire, but go and look at a pretty reef down to sort of advanced open water level, more than competent, more than happy. She'd breathe less than me any day of the week. Like, this is good. Yeah, but no real tech diving. She's done a little bit of caving in her past, but yeah, obviously the clock keeps ticking, doesn't it? So these things do get harder as time goes on, definitely.
So what is her has she ever, like, had a total freak out on you afterwards, after you've done a dive?
No, never. She's always
like, why the heck?
There's been some, like, are you sure you wanted to do that moments, but I think she has the utmost trust in my dad's safety and how he's taught, because, I mean, everyone's got their limits, and his sole revolving purpose around teaching me to dive was do it safely. There was no sugarcoating. Even when I was young, I remember sort of doing some dives in Greece, and I'd either just done my open water or just before I'd done my open water, and I really wasn't doing very well. Yeah, I couldn't get down. I was not happy. I was having a bit of a wobble, and he was like, "Big dude, you can focus and we can do this, or we can get out of the water, because in your current state, you're not doing anything productive." And I remember that as a thing. It was just like a stern talk. It's like, this is not a life sustaining environment, mate. You can't just take it for granted. You've got to be sensible. If you act like an adult, I'll treat you like an adult, and we'll go and do cool things. If you lose that tactic, we won't do cool things. I mean, that was the trade-off. So I think, although my mum may not have always been super happy with some of the stories I've told her, she's always accepted the fact that I'm going to go and do it anyway, from the training I've had and from the ability I continue to pursue. Nothing's going to change. Like, I'm going to come home, everything's going to be good. I mean, there's the ever-present thing of like, what if it's not? But that's a question you could ask yourself walking through the supermarket. It's just the acceptance of risk we pursue as tech divers and instructors. So, yeah, I think she's pretty chilling. She likes the fact that I'm traveling. She likes the fact that I'm diving. It's a better lifestyle than sitting and doing nothing, as we've discussed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you said that there's been instances where she's not been too keen on it afterwards or whatever, or when you told me. So give me a funny example out of that you can look back on now as like humorous. That
there's a couple, but we won't dwell on Mexico because that was probably the most severe of all of them. But yeah, lots of mine diving in the UK. Slate Mines specifically offer some of the best diving that we've got on hand there. Crystal clear visibility, cold water, but crystal clear visibility, quite deep, quite long. You can go a long way from base. And I was assisting my dad on a teaching side of things. He had an intro to cave course or intro to mine course at the time. We're diving from relatively early on. I think I was about 16, so it's just when he sort of got back into the teaching side of things, looking at the different dive bases and stuff like that. Anyway, slate is inherently unstable. It comes down in layers, and when you add bubbles, you add gravity to the otherwise sort of submerged passage. So I was at the back, old man was at the front, and then there's 3 students in between us, very close to the exit, fortunately. But I just remember this maelstrom of sort of fairly large blocks coming down, falling from the ceiling. The whole wall collapsed, basically. The passage is probably 2 meters wide, 2 meters high, maybe, give or take. And a very large section of wall just went. Ka-choo. So I'm at the back, and everyone else is clear, and it's gone from 30 meters visibility to 0, like nothing completely. Fortunately, I've got hold of the line because young and new, but I basically followed everyone else, sort of shook all the rocks off. And she wasn't super happy when I told her about that, but I mean, life went on, and it was good. It was a good experience, and that grew a healthy respect for that environment. I mean, mines are inherently relatively unstable to dive in compared to the otherwise very stable caves. But yeah, there's many a moment like that.
No, you're
lucky indeed. It wasn't super catastrophic, but that's the type of event that could be super catastrophic, especially when there's students in the water who don't know what's going on and who don't specifically have the ability to deal with that as a situation.
Yeah, no, that's true for sure. Well, Robert, I would like to thank you for joining me on the podcast today. It's been awesome having you on, and I'm going to have all the links to your stuff down below in the podcast. So check it out, everybody, and make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And you can also buy me a coffee donate to me at buymeacoffee.com/deadfootdiver. And I will see you guys next time. So keep diving.
Yeah, thank you.